So you're wondering what living in Dallas, Texas is really like? Well, you came to the right place because we are going to give you everything that we have learned in the almost 12 years since we have lived here now. And it has been interesting to say the least. So, what's up, everyone? My name is Kristen Carpentier, and I'm a local realtor right here in the Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex. We have people just like you that reach out to us every single day wondering if Dallas, Texas may be a good place for them to live. So, if you are thinking of making Dallas your next home, don't hesitate to reach out at that number below, and I will give you all that I got. No secrets. And if you are thinking of moving here, I want you to know exactly what you are in for so that you have no regrets. All right, now, one of the favorite things that people like to ask about is our ever changing weather. I've had clients want to know how bad the tornadoes are going to be, how bad the hail is going to get, and if they can handle it when moving here to Dallas. So, some say that we only get fireworks on the 4th of July here in Dallas. Well, spring is actually when we get a lot more of our fireworks that happen. If you have not experienced a thunderstorm in the South, you are in for a rude awakening. We are talking about biblical thunderstorms and lightning. I remember our first thunderstorm here in Texas. It was probably still to this day one of the scariest ones that we have ever experienced. Granted, we were staying at my aunt and uncle's house up on the second story of their home overlooking the golf course. And we had no idea what hit us in the middle of the night. It sounded like the thunder was going to crack through the middle of their house. It was honestly quite terrifying, but probably it didn't help with the view and where we were located. Well, then we have the hail that comes with some of these storms, the strong winds and the tornadoes that want to threaten us on occasion. Well, in the almost 12 years that we have lived here, we have not yet experienced a tornado here. Granted, there have been a few minor touchdowns in the Dallas Metroplex, but for the most part, nobody that we know has really been totally and brutally affected right in the Dallas metro area. But the spring can be pretty darn beautiful as well. With all of the blooms and flowers and all the trees turning that bright green color, Texas can honestly be one of the most beautiful places. Granted, we still don't have the mountains, but the spring season will always be one of the most unpredictable times of the year. And as we move on into the summer seasons, those are going to be pretty darn hot and quite humid. In fact, if you are here right now at this time of year when we are shooting this video in early June of 2023, the humidity, I just looked this morning, is at around 90%. It's over 90 degrees outside, and it is just like going outside into a sauna. It is miserable. Why we even bother curling our hair, I have no idea. So, granted, there are some other cities that do have it much worse. It's not really this high of the humidity and this hot this early in the season, but right now it is frankly quite miserable. And of course, other areas that are even further south do get this a little longer in the season than we do here in the Dallas area. So another thing that we do have to deal with because of the humidity, because of all the grass and the trees, are the bugs that come out in full force, and it is a lot of mosquitoes. So I'm not sure about you, but I'm kind of allergic to them. In fact, when I was younger, I was pretty darn allergic to them. My eyes would swell up, and now I just get big welts on my skin. But I can go outside and get eaten alive and have over 50 bites just by doing a little bit of yard work or going outside. So obviously, we totally do not love that part about it. And of course, with the mosquitoes come the wasps and the cicadas, our June bugs, and those lovely mud daubers that like to swarm around and create those little mud tunnels up underneath our house. And of course, it is not just the bugs that we get around here, but we do get the occasional snake. If you are living around some water, maybe a pond or a local golf course, you might see a few snakes a little more often than some of the other areas, but we do get them. If you're going out to the lake or some of the nature areas, you may find a few more out there, so something to be aware of. But we also, right here in the middle of town, have seen the occasional skunk, the coyotes, raccoons, the armadillos, and even the occasional deer literally just traipsing right through the middle of town. So if you have an older home, you may also expect to see some of those electric bills start to rise during the summer months as well. And the more your air conditioning runs and Obviously, if your home is not as energy efficient as some of the others, your electric bills are going to be a little bit higher. So, of course, the hotter that it gets and the less rain that we have is when our water bills will start to spike with all of the watering that is needed to keep that beautiful grass outside nice and green and all of those plants from dying. So, not to mention with the clay soil in our yards, you want to make sure that your foundation is getting enough water so that you don't end up having foundation issues like a lot of homes here in Texas can have. And if you have a pool, that can also evaporate pretty darn quickly with the heat. So the pools can get relatively hot if you don't have some form of circulation going, and your water bill will start to increase because of that as well. So here in Texas, we do get a lot of sun, and we do have a lot of lakes and pools. And if you are into the outdoors and hunting and fishing, here in Texas is great as well. We have tons of biking and hiking trails, and that is a really big deal here, especially along a lot of the lakes. So granted, hiking isn't scaling a mountain like some of the other states, but in through the trees and along the lake's edge, you can find a lot of these trails, not to mention in and around and through a lot of these neighborhoods also. So then we move into the winter season, and you are just not sure what you're going to get in the winter time. It could be pretty mild, where we are not going to get any sort of snow or ice on the ground, but it can also be crazy. You can have some rolling blackouts because of a crazy ice storm that comes through town, like we did have a couple of years ago here in the Dallas metro area. And when it rains and that ice builds up on the street, we have known multiple people who have gone out and pulled out their ice skates and skated down and around through the neighborhood because of the thick ice that can form so quickly here in Dallas. So the weather, of course, can go down into the single digits, or it can be up into the 80s in the winter months. You just never quite know when that cold front is going to be coming through. There are also no slopes here at all to go skiing, so you might need to get a little bit creative, like skimboarding down the street or sledding in a park or one of the schools that have a little bit of a hill. In fact, when the storms come and the snow does happen to dump, everybody will come out, find those little hills in and around the neighborhoods so that their kids can enjoy that beautiful snow season that we get so seldom here in Texas. Not like it is up north in the mountains, but we are going to take what we can get. And when it happens, everybody comes out in full force. Of course, not many people have the snow gear. I know we don't. And the kids just make do with bundling up in multiple sweatshirts and sweatpants and multiple layers of socks because nobody wants to miss out when we actually do get that snow on the ground. So if you are thinking of moving and living right here in the Dallas, Texas area, the first thing that you do need to know and get your head wrapped around is that the Dallas metro area is huge, like over 9,000 square miles huge. Please reach out to me. I do not want you to move to the wrong area. I want you to know exactly what you're getting into for the commute and the neighborhoods and where you may need to be located in order to find that perfect area. So there are also many different types of lifestyles here in the Dallas area. You have that country living. If you want a little bit more land and you don't want to be right in the city, you definitely have a lot of options to do that. You have the urban living. If you want to be closer to downtown, to where all the hustle and bustle is, you have that as well. But you also have lots of beautiful suburban areas, beautiful neighborhoods, great communities with schools. So if that's more your speed, we have lots of that all throughout the Metroplex. So no matter what it is that you're looking for, we will help you find it here in the Dallas area. We just don't really have the beach or the mountain living other than what you call a man-made beach in the Prosper Beach living area of maybe Windsong Ranch, or living in a home that has a lake view on one of the lakes here in the metro. So the first thing that you do need to know is what is important to you. Is it the schools? Are they some safer neighborhoods? The proximity to work, being in the country and away from everybody, or living near the lake and the outdoor activities? How much can you afford when you are moving here as well? Because that's going to definitely determine a lot more of the neighborhoods and the price points and the locations in which to find that perfect home for you as well. Are you interested in a new build home or a relatively new home in a newer community? Are you okay with an older home? And maybe you're on the adventurous side and you want to get a home that you can come in and make your own and fix up to have it be that perfect place for you and your family. Now, another thing to think about is the HOAs. Well, they definitely have a lot of those here, but one thing that we have noticed is that the fees are a lot cheaper than many of the other places in the United States that we have lived. That all depends on the community that you're looking at, because the newer the community with the more amenities will certainly cost you more than one of those nice master plan communities that may be a little bit on the older side, or one of the smaller master plan communities that does have a couple of the amenities that you might be looking for, like just, your local playground, your local swimming pool. And what used to end up costing us $120 a month in Arizona would only cost us about $30 a month here. And there will always be some sort of an exception. So, another reason why, let us know what it is that you're looking for. And if you don't want those crazy high HOA fees or maybe no HOA fee at all, that's what we're here for, to help dissect and find you the perfect place. So, homes here also have a much different style compared to some of the other areas throughout the country. Since this is technically considered the South, most of the homes will have stone or brick exteriors over the majority of the homes, and most of the roofs will be a shingle type roof because obviously we have hail, and if you're going to get those clay tile roofs, you're going to run into probably a lot more cracking, and it's going to be a lot more expensive to repair. But in Arizona, most of the homes there were made out of stucco on the outsides, and they had tile roofs because they don't have the hailstorms like we do get here. Now, fences are different here as well, the fences that surround your property. Most are wood fences that are painted or stained, and after a few years, if you're not taking very good care of it, it can start to be warped and start to fall over, and it's definitely going to determine if you and your neighbor take good care of it on either side to know how long that fence is going to last. You will see some of these higher end communities that don't even allow wooden fences, and they allow a more see-through wrought iron fence to surround the property. And you'll see multiple different styles of wooden fences. You will see a board-on-board fence. You'll see just a regular single picket fence, 6-foot, 8-foot fence. So obviously one neighbor can have it looking one way and the next neighbor can have it looking another. So not something that we were too thrilled about when we moved here, because we had the block wall fences when we lived in Arizona, and it just kind of helped separate the neighborhoods and everybody looked a lot more cohesive there. But it is what it is when you move here to the Dallas, Texas area. And speaking a little bit more about the utilities here in the Dallas area, as we mentioned earlier, they can get to be quite expensive, especially in the summertime. If you are in an older home with poor insulation and some older windows, this can cause you to have bills as high as $1,000 that I've heard in a few particular instances. Obviously, these are homes that probably have some older pools on the property as well that aren't necessarily working as efficiently as well. So just something to keep in mind, that the more you get your items serviced and you keep on top of everything, the better that hopefully your utility bills will run, just by making sure it's as efficient as possible. Some of the new construction homes do have an advantage to this as well, because they are built to be more energy efficient. Now, one of the great things about Texas is the number of trees, and the more established the neighborhoods are, they are quite beautiful. You have these big overgrown trees that with a lot of shade throughout the neighborhood, and you don't really find most of that in the new construction neighborhoods. They make it somewhat pleasant when you're out taking your morning walk, or even in the summertime when it is super hot and we might have a little bit of a breeze that blows through. They also give the neighborhoods a lot of character as well, which is another thing that we love. And unlike some of the new subdivisions that just plant those trees and will take 10 to 20 years to be able to fully enjoy the beauty and the shade when you are outside in these hot summer months. So, do you care about the politics where you live? Now, the stereotype is that everyone in Texas is conservative or a Republican, and this is definitely not the case. Just looking at the last election in 2020 shows that many of the urban areas and some of the suburbs in the Dallas metro are actually starting to lean more Democrat. But I am not going to lie, you are going to get into most of the suburbs and the rural areas, and it is going to still be pretty red, which is a big draw to many people trying to escape some of the other states that are way too blue for their liking. But the point I'm trying to make is that Texas, and Dallas in particular, is actually a place that most people live and let live, as long as you're not really messing with their property or their family. Now, don't let all the media stereotypes of Texans cloud your judgment. My husband and I have lived in California, Arizona, Virginia, and Utah, and so far, Texas has been the overall best one for us and what we value. It is not perfect, because what place really is? I do miss the beaches and the mountains, but I do also love being able to get to the lake in just 10 minutes. Now, simply put, one of my neighbors was actually a Beto O'Rourke supporter. He was always putting his yard signs out, and the other neighbor is very conservative with his big truck and his country-loving license plates and all of his flags outside. Now, we all actually get along great and we can have fun with each other, but first and foremost, they are our neighbors. And when they need help with something, we are there for each other. And that is what is beautiful about Texas. When we had our crazy ice storms and many lost power, we were checking in on each other, and those with trucks were out running errands for those who couldn't actually even get out of their house or were a little bit more scared to do so. Now, let's talk about our schools. Of all the places that we have been, Texas schools are definitely different. And there are exceptions, of course, to the rules, but most schools in very populated cities are huge, like the size of some college campuses. This can be quite a shocker to some kids moving here to Texas, where they had maybe a few hundred kids in a class, and now they have up to 1,000 or more even. Allen High School is the largest school here in the state of Texas, and it really does look like a small college campus. And the football stadium is better than a lot of the colleges, as well as many of the cities in the Dallas area. The academics are stronger in some of the areas than others as well, but by no means does that mean that it is subpar. We have done a few videos on the school systems and some of the other cities with high school rankings if you do want to check some of those out. But overall, we have had 4 kids raised in Texas that went through the school systems, and they are all doing great and in college. And our oldest is actually now getting ready to graduate. So if you know anything at all about Texas schools, you know that sports and even the marching bands are no joke. As you can tell with the number of kids that are recruited by college athletic programs from here, it is quite competitive as soon as these kids can pretty much walk, basically. And a lot of the people will even hold their kids back a grade if they think it will help their chances of excelling in one of their particular sports. And the band competitions are just as competitive. Half the people in the stands at a football game could be there just to support the marching band. And for some of the schools, maybe even more of them. Now, cheerleading is also a very big deal here, too. I used to think it was just girls shaking their pom poms, shouting out the whole rah rah thing the whole game. But it is no joke. The cheer squads here have actual gymnasts that can do some crazy tumbling and stunts, not to mention the amount of guys that are out on some of these squads as well. In fact, a lot of schools we have heard like to go into the football teams and maybe the kids that aren't first string football players and recruit them to the cheerleading squad just because of how strong they are and what they think that they can train them to do to flip these cheerleaders up through the air. So just another thing to think about when you're moving here to the Dallas area. Now, let's talk a bit about our lovely taxes. Unfortunately, they are just a part of life. Governments do not produce the income, therefore, they need to tax to pay for services. Different states and cities go about it differently within the different parts of the country. Now, in Texas, we choose not to collect income tax, and this is a plus for those that are higher wage earners as well as upper middle class. This, however, is not all that beneficial to lower income people or people on a fixed income. Texas does collect higher than average property taxes, and this is often what you will hear people complaining about. Now, I'm not going to lie, paying thousands of dollars or even $10,000 a year can be quite a shocker when it comes to paying your property taxes. And this is the main source of funds for the school systems, and the majority of the money that is collected goes there. Now, the largest portion of the property taxes does go into the schools, like I said, and it also goes to the county and the city services, municipal operations, and the special districts. Typically, if you are in a newer area with highly rated schools, your taxes are likely going to be higher there. Now, there are homestead exemptions you can get, as well as exemptions if you are over 65, and disability exemptions if you happen to qualify for those by serving in the military. Now, we also have sales tax here as well, which can be a bit steep. Here in Flower Mound, we pay 8.25%. Most of that goes to the state, 6.25%, and the remainder goes to the local sales tax of 2% for the city and the county. There's also registration for vehicles as well. For us, it is pretty cheap. It's like $76 per vehicle per year, which is much better than several of the other states that we have lived in. In Arizona and California, we did pay quite a bit more for the registration on our cars. You also need to pay the motor vehicle sales tax as well of about 6.25%, whether it is a brand new car or a used car, and regardless if you buy it from a dealership or a private party. And if you do own a business, you will also have to pay a franchise tax and collect the applicable sales taxes for the areas that in which you do your business. Now, Texas is also a sports and entertainment hub. There are lots of things to do here. There are professional sports like the Dallas Stars hockey team, the Dallas Cowboys, of course, the Texas Rangers, FC Dallas Soccer, and the Dallas Mavericks. Even some minor league sports like the Frisco Rough Riders, just to name a few. Dallas has representation in all of the major sports, and almost every sport you can think of, there are also minor league teams as well. And if golf is your thing, they now have the PGA headquarters that has moved in here to the Frisco area as well. There are amusement and water parks all over the place. And not to mention, every city seems to have their own little mini water park as well at their community activity centers, which are really fun for the kids to be able to go out. And not every kid wants to go to these big, huge water parks or spend the entire day, but they're the perfect opportunity to take your kids and spend a couple of hours. Now, they do have Six Flags Over Texas and Hurricane Harbor in Arlington, and there's also going to be a Universal Studios going into the Frisco area as well. Now, if you like concerts and museums, if you are into art and maybe the symphony, we have multiple options to be able to go and enjoy the arts here in the Dallas area as well. And you would be surprised just how much culture here is in the Dallas metro area that a lot of people haven't really thought about before until they get here. And oh, yeah, who can forget about the rodeos and the Texas State Fair? So, of course, when you're going to move here, you're going to need to make sure you experience that as well. Now, not to mention the number of lakes here in the Dallas metro area. Most people here can be to a lake if you're into boating or you just want to spend a day out on the lake in maybe about 10 minutes to probably 30 minutes at the most, just because of the number of lakes that we do have here. So there is no need to be scared of moving here to the Dallas area. Everything does seem bigger here, but it is not scary. And reach out to me if you have any questions at all. I love talking to people who are thinking about moving here, and I do it pretty much daily these days. And I hope this has helped. And this is for sure not a comprehensive list of everything that you could experience when you move here to the Dallas, Texas area, but it will give you a good feel for it. And of course, nothing like what coming here for a visit is going to be able to do for you. So if you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to reach out. Give me a call, shoot me a text, or send me an email. And we would love to see how we can help you make a smooth move here to the Dallas, Texas area. And until next time, take care.